This video is an example of the type of things that I think you have to master to become really good at Mahjong, specifically riichi Mahjong and more on Tenho because there can be a lot of different rule sets. But anyway, the specific topic for this video is 2 and 3 pair Iishanten hands. So Iishanten means one away. So if you draw one, if you draw a certain specific tile, then you'll have a ready hand. So what I mean specifically by 2 and 3 pair Iishanten hands is they have to have 2 completed melds and then 2 or 3 pairs in the incompleted melds. So for example, in this hand here, you do have 4 pairs, but 2 of them are in a complete meld, so those don't count. And it's only the 2 that aren't in complete melds that count. Then the pairs are also going to be attached to useful tiles. So for example, a 2-2 with a 3 next to it. And then the focus here is on building a complete hand. And sometimes you might want to deviate from these ideas so you can get Yaku or Dora or a better shape. But I would recommend not deviating too much unless you're sure it's good to do that, because it's easy to go pretty wrong if you chase Yaku too much without really knowing what you're doing. And you could kind of throw away a hand that's almost complete. So if you do just the standard thing every time, then it'll be more stable and you'll have less hands where you make big mistakes. Although sometimes you might lose a little bit of value or miss out on something else. And then I think it's something that people kind of underrate, where when people are trying to get better, they won't think of this as something that's that important because they'll feel like, well, they understand the idea kind of, and they think they've got it down. And then even if they get it wrong in some cases, it might not matter in that case. So people would think it's not so important or it didn't really matter. But I really think you should try to get it right every time, even if it doesn't matter. And if you can do that, it'll make you a better player. This also doesn't have the kind of big impact feeling where, like, if you deal into an 18,000 point hand and lose, then you're going to feel like, oh, those things are making me lose, and that's going to really stand out to you. But sometimes things like that are just the things that happen due to random chance, and you can't do that much about it. But this is something that you can focus on and try to get right every time. And then I also think people often worry about things that are too complicated. And I have this example where people will be like, well, what about this situation in South 2 with a reach out and there's 7 safe Sujis and 4 Dora visible, and this tile is 1 chance with the Matagi Suji, and it's a 5 tile weight, and I'm dealer, and I have a 25% Mong on hand, and there's 2 reach 6 in the middle, and 3 Honba, and 2 calls from Chimocha on the 8th discard, and these are the tiles that were Sumo Giri. Where it's like, a lot of times I think that's a little bit too complex, and you really need to focus on the more simple things. Anyway, getting into the video, I'm going to start out with 2 pair Iishanten hands, and the key idea is that you want to make a clear pair off of whichever pair and useful tile has the worst shape. So an edge weight is the worst, which is a 1-2 or an 8-9, and then a middle weight is slightly better because it can improve more easily. So if you have like a 6-8, 5-7, 4-6, that's a middle weight, and then a 2-sided weight like a 7-8 is the best. So in this example, you want to make a clear pair off the worst shape when you have a 2 pair Iishanten. So for the first one, I'll talk about how you identify it. So you have 2 complete melds, the 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. You have 2 pairs attached to useful tiles, and then you have a weight for another meld. and that's a 2-pair Iishanten hand. So the worst shape here, you're choosing between the 6-8 and the 2-3. So you want to make a clear pair, and the 6-8 is the worst shape, so you discard the 8 of circles. And if you look at the numbers, it ends up being something like this, where 6 is a bad discard. So one of the big focus points is you want to give yourself the best chance for a good shape tenpai, and then just any tenpai. So if you discard the 6, that's not a good discard. 8 is the best. 2 is okay, but it's just losing to the 8, so there's not many advantages to discarding the 2, unless there's something else on the board that makes it better to discard the 2. And then 3 isn't a very good discard either. So when you're playing, you don't want to really focus on the numbers, and you don't even have to really focus on the numbers when you're learning. Just understand the idea that you want to make a clear pair off of the worst shape. So here's another example. Again, this is the same one from the earlier slide, and you know it's a 2-pair Iishanten hand because it has 2 complete melds, then it has 2 pairs with useful tiles, and then it has another weight. So here you have a 7-8 with your pair, and a 2-3 with your pair, and they're both 2-sided weights. So it seems equal, but this 2-3 overlaps with the 5-6, so the 2-3 is a worse shape, and you want to discard the 3. So again, with the numbers, 3 and 7 are going to be what you usually want to do, because when you have a 2-pair Iishanten, you want to discard a tile and make a clear pair. But in this case, discarding the 3 is better, because the 2-3 and the 5-6 overlap, like I said. So you'll have the best chance for a good shape tenpai, and any tenpai, if you discard the 3. Now for another example, again, here's a complete meld here and a meld here, 2 pairs and a weight, and the pairs are attached to useful tiles. So again, they're both the same shape, but there's an overlap here too. So here you discard the 2 of circles, and your shapes aren't as good this time, but so that's why the numbers are lower, but it's still the best to discard the 2 of circles, and that's going to give you the best chance for a good shape tenpai or any tenpai at all. And one more 2-pair Iishanten example. So here you've got your 2-3-3 and your 2-2-3. They're actually equivalent shapes, and there's no real difference here to talk about. And the main idea would be to discard the 2 of circles or the 3 of bamboo, but this hand could improve, so this is where you might think about doing something different, but you have to make sure you do it correctly. So if you were to discard the 9 of circles, so that maybe you can get Tan Yao, which is all middle tiles, no 1s or 9s or honor tiles. If you discard the 9 of circles, that might look like a good way to improve, but not only do you lose all your chances of getting tenpai, you also lose out on a lot of improvement tiles, so it's actually kind of like throwing your hand away, and it's not a very good choice here. Obviously, you could get lucky and draw back into it, and it could work out, but that's requiring on luck, and then you're going to need a lot more good luck to get there. On the other hand, 2 of circles or 3 of bamboo would be making a clear pair off of the worst shape. They're both equivalent shapes though, like I said. And you'll see it's got slightly more draws to tenpai, but discarding like the 3 of circles or 2 of bamboo does give you more improvement tiles, and it has the same number of good shape tenpai tiles. It's pretty close in any tenpai, so in this case, that might be the better discard here. But again, you're not going to go too wrong if you just stick to the rule of making a clear pair off the worst shape. But if you deviate too much, you could pick a choice that really isn't that good. Now I'm going to move on to 3-pair Iishanten. So here, it's a little bit different than 2-pair. First, I'll talk about identifying it again. So again, you're going to have 2 complete melds. So in this example, you have a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 2 complete melds. And then you have 3 pairs in the incomplete melds. So 3, 3, 9, 9, 2, 2. And then 2 of those pairs are going to have useful tiles attached to them. So this 3, 3 has a 2 attached, and the 2, 2 has a 4 attached. So the idea for what you want to do here is you're going to discard from a pair, and you want to discard from the pair plus useful tile combination, which has the best shape. So this 2, 3 has a better shape than the 2, 4, so you discard the 3 of circles. And part of the reason for that is you're trying to help the weaker shapes complete, so you have a better chance for a good weight tempai. So for best chance of tempai, you're going to discard the 3 of circles or 2 of bamboo. But you'll see there's a big difference in the good shape tempai chance, because if you discard the 3 of circles and then you complete one of the pairs and make them a triplet, like you draw a 9 of circles, then you're left over with the good weight because you can use the pair on the bad weight. And in this example, you'd be discarding the 4 of bamboo and you have a good shaped tempai, and that's what you're going for. And so while the 2 of bamboo has the same number of tiles to tempai, it doesn't have as many tiles that are going to get you to a good shaped tempai. So that's why you discard the 3 of circles. Now let's look at another example. Again, it's got 2 completed melds, 3 pairs outside of the completed melds, and the 2 of the pairs are attached to useful tiles. So this is very similar to the previous one. Discard from the pair, which has the best shape left over. And in this case, that's the 2 of bamboo. And again, the numbers are very similar here too. And 2 of bamboo gives you the best chance for a good shaped tempai. Now for the third example, again, 2 completed sequences, 3 pairs attached to useful tiles. So you have an 899 and a 335. So from the theory, you can guess you would discard either the 9 of circles or the 3 of bamboo. But again, the middle weight 3-5 is better than the edge weight 8-9. So usually you're going to want to discard this 3 of bamboo. And you'll see the numbers are the same. Both your shapes are bad weights. So you don't have a chance at getting a good shaped tempai. And they both have the same number of tiles to get any tempai. So it might look equivalent, but it's not quite equivalent, because if you discard this 3 of bamboo and then you draw an improvement tile around it, for example the 2 of bamboo, then you'll have a better shape left over because your pair will be on the worst shape. So you're going to have a better chance of a good shaped tempai when you draw the improvement tile. So again, it's going a few steps farther, but it's not quite, it's still useful to know. You're still going to want to get it right, but it's not going to come up as much because you have to draw an improvement tile. But when you do, you'll have wanted to make the right decision before that. So just to go over it a little more, if you had discarded the 9 of circles and then you draw that improvement tile, well here you're in your 2-pair Iishanten case, except the 5 is kind of like a lone tile and you'd probably discard the 5. You usually wouldn't want to keep the overlapping middle weight 2, 3, 3, 5. And there are times that you would, but again, usually you wouldn't want to do that. So if you discard the 5 of bamboo here, then you're in one of those cases where you get less draws to a good weight tenpai, because if you draw the pair, improve a pair to a triplet, so you draw 9 of bamboo, then you have to discard the 2 of bamboo and use the 3s as the pair, and then you're left with a bad weight. Whereas in the other case, if you complete the pair on the, or make the pair a triplet on the 9 of bamboos, then you can discard the 8 of circles and use the 9s as a pair, and then you have the good weight left over. So this type of analysis isn't something you would want to process while you're playing. It's something you want to just be able to follow this rule and understand that there's a reason behind it. So that rule is just discarding the pair from the pair plus useful tile, which has the best shape. And for this final example, now you have 3 pairs, and they're all kind of attached to useful tiles. Like this 1 is attached to a 2, but the 4 is also attached to the 2, and the 1 of bamboo is attached to the 2. So there, even if you discard from a pair, and you know you're going to do that, there's still an argument for all 3 pairs because they're all attached to useful tiles. So again, 2-4 is the best shape out of the 3 because you have a 1-2 edge weight, 1-2 edge weight, and a 2-4 middle weight. 2-4 is the best shape of those 3, so you're going to want to discard the 4. And again, the immediate numbers are all the same. There's no chance of a good shape tenpai, and they all have the same number of draws to any tenpai. But if you improve with the 5 of circles, then discarding the 4 is going to give you the best shape. And it says C slide 8, so that's actually this 2-pair Iishanten hand, where if you draw this 5 of circles after discarding the 4 of circles, your hand would look exactly like this. Then you can discard the 2 of circles, and you have the most weights to a good shape tenpai or any tenpai. And it's going to be worse if you had discarded one of the other pairs. So now the next thing to think about is all of these examples have really simple shapes in them, and they're more for demonstrating the main point. But a lot of times you're going to end up with hands that kind of have these overlapping shapes, and it becomes a lot more complex. Now, the easy way to deal with this is just to reduce these complex shapes into something simpler. So, for example, if you have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, that's kind of complicated, but you can take out the completed meld of 2, 3, 4 and treat it like a 5, 5, 6, and that's a pair plus a connected tile. And then you can use the same rules from before with your pairs, with your like 2-pair and 3-pair Iishanten. And for this example, you have a 1, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can just treat it like a 1, 1, 3, but it's a bit better. So the first one's a bit better because you can draw a 1 and get 2 completed melds, where if you had a normal 5, 5, 6, you can't draw a 1 and complete anything with it. This one's a bit better than a 1, 1, 3 because it also can act like a lone 6, so you can improve around the 6 or the 3. Where if you have a 1, 1, 3, normally you can't draw something around the 6 and use it. If you have something like a 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, you can just treat it as a 1, 1 pair and a 1, 2, 3. And these complex shapes like this is just like a 3, 3, 4 plus a 3, 4, 5. But it's a bit better because the way the shapes interact, you have a few more improvement tiles that you can draw. And this one too is like a 3, 4, 4 plus a 3, 4, 5, but a bit better. And this one's a bit tricky to notice if you aren't aware of it, but this 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 looks like the 1 isn't doing anything, but it's actually able to complete a meld if you draw a 2. So it'd be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when you're thinking about it, you want to treat it like a middle weight, like a 4, 6, 6, except it's a 1 instead of a 4. So it's like a 1-6-6 that go where the 1 reaches the 6. However you can think about it to yourself to make sense of it and understand it. So, with that in mind, let's look at some more complex examples. And starting with 2 pair Iishanten, what would you discard here? So, again, you know it's a 2 pair Iishanten because you have 2 completed melds, and then it's a 2 pair version of it because you have the 7-8-8, 5-5-6, and a weight with the 5-6. So again, the idea is you want to make a clear pair off of the worst shape, and in this case, the 7-8 is a worse shape than the 2-3-4-5-6. So it's like a 5-6, but better. So that makes this the better shape. And you want to discard the 7 of characters. And you'll see it actually makes quite a big difference. And it can be something that you can easily get thrown off on because you look at the 7-8 and you're like, that's a good weight. I want to keep it. And so maybe you think about discarding the 8 of characters, but that ends up being quite a bit worse than the best option, and you're just kind of hurting yourself for no good reason, unless maybe 7 is the Doro or something like that, but even then you would discard the 6 of circles probably. So 7 is the best, and if you can't recognize that the hand is a 2 pair Iishanten, then you might make a wrong discard with like the 8 and or the 5 of circles, and those aren't as good. So here's another example, and the complex shape here is this 2-3-4-5-7. So if you're not aware of it, this 7 might not look like it's doing anything and you just discard it. But again, you can think of it as a 2-2-4 or a 2-2-7. So it's like a 2-2-4 but a 7 instead of the 4. And then you want to make a clear pair off the worst shape. 8-9 is worse than 2-4 or 2-7, however you look at it. So you discard the 8 of bamboo. And again, for a case like this, the numbers are exactly the same for good shape tenpai and any tenpai, but holding on to the 7 gives you more improvement tiles because you can draw the 8. Now again, here's another hand. When you're playing, you would have to identify that it's a 2 pair Iishanten hand by seeing 1 completed meld, 2 completed melds. This can be considered as a 5-5-6, so it's a pair and a connected tile, pair and connected tile, and then a weight. So it's the same 2 pair Iishanten type hand, and you want to make a clear pair off the worst shape. The worst shape is the 3-5 here, and not the 5-6. So you discard the 5 of bamboo. And that's going to give you the best chances of a good shape tenpai or any tenpai. And the danger of maybe like getting confused and making a wrong discard, like here if you were to discard the 3 of bamboo because you didn't quite understand the shape correctly, then you kind of are almost throwing away the hand because you go from 22 tiles to a good shape tenpai to 4, and half the tiles to any tenpai almost. So that's why you really want to be able to understand the shapes and how to handle them. Now I'm going to move on to the 3 pair Iishanten. Again, when you're actually playing, you have to be able to identify it as a 3 pair Iishanten hand. So you have to see 2 completed melds, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and then 3 pairs, 2 of them attached to a lone tile. So 5, 5, 8, 8, and 2, 2. And 2 of them were attached to lone tiles. And then with the 3 pair hand, the idea is that you discard a pair from the better shape, and 7, 8 is a better shape than 2, 2, 4, and you don't have to think too much about this complex 3, 4, 5, 5, 5 shape. It's you kind of just think of it as your lone pair, and you want to discard the 8 of circles. So if for example, for some reason you got confused and discarded the 5 of circles, that's again like throwing away your hand almost. There are now no tiles that get you to a good shape tempai in one draw versus 19, and there's a lot less tiles that get you to any tempai at all. So it's almost like throwing away the hand, and it's a type of mistake you don't want to make. And then 4 actually isn't too bad here either, but I'm not going to go into that one. Now, for another example of a 3-pair Iishanten complex hand, so again, 2 completed melds, 3 pairs, and attached to useful tiles. What you want to do is discard the tile with the best shape, tile from the pair with the best shape, and this can be like a 3, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just following the theory, you would be discarding this 3 of bamboo. Now, for what the actual optimal choice here is, it might vary. Like, you could argue for discarding the 1 of circles because it gives you a better chance to get Yaku, and it gives you a better chance to get maybe Sanshoku, maybe Tanyao, and it doesn't lose that much, and that's the key point. So if you draw one of the improvement tiles, then the shape you get afterwards is a little bit worse if you discard the one of circles. So for that reason, just pure efficiency would be 3 of bamboo, but again, there could be arguments for discarding the 1 of circles here. But you do want to remember the main idea: discard a pair from the better shape. And if you don't discard a pair, like maybe you're really focused on Sanshoku, so you're like, I got 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, and I have these 5s that could become a 6, 7, and so you just discard the 8. That's pretty costly because not only do you lose a couple tiles to Tenpai, you also lose out on a lot of improvement tiles. So your hand didn't necessarily have to go to Sanshoku. It could have become like a normal Pinfu hand, but you lose out on a lot of that when you discard this 8. So again, it's something that you really want to understand, and then try to focus on getting your hand progression correct first before focusing too much on getting specific Yaku. Now for another 3-pair Iishanten hand, here again, a completed meld here in different ways, and then a pair attached to a useful tile, and this you can look at it as a 1, 2, 2. So it's like a pair attached to a useful tile. So it's 3 pair. You discard the pair from the better shape. In this case, that's the 5, 7 over the 1, 2. So that would be discarding the 7 of bamboo. So even though it's a complex case, you can just follow the same rule, and it'll generally lead you to the right answer. And even if it's not the pure optimal expected value perfect answer, it's generally going to be a good choice anyway. Whereas if you don't follow the rule, it's easy to go way off. And again, the numbers are all pretty close, but discarding the 7 is going to give you some better chances to improve to a better hand. Now, just some notes for when you're trying to improve on your own. First of all, for this video, to really be able to use it, you're going to have to be able to identify what categories your hands are in. So this doesn't cover all possible categories, but it is very common to see hands like this. Like, you're not going to necessarily see it every hand, but you're going to see it a lot. It's going to come up very regularly. And then you're going to want to understand the main ideas, and then just have it really automatic. Just, you know what to do with that, and you know it's not a big mistake and it's not throwing away your hand. So you want to master these Iishanten categories or one-way categories, and then other variations like if you only have one pair or no pair at all, or your pairs are all attached to, or they aren't all attached to lone tiles, which is slightly different, or you have complex hands that could be interpreted in even more ways and don't quite fall into one of these categories only. You want to try to master all of these cases, and if you run into any like Iishanten hands while you're playing that you don't feel super comfortable with, that might be something you want to look up afterwards and just try to make sure you understand that hand shape correctly. And then you can do something similar with two Shanten hands and farther away hands that are farther away from being ready. And then one last note is that if you want to get better, you have to learn information that you can generalize to a lot more hands and more situations. So one of the complaints I have on a lot of what would you do questions is that a lot of times people are more focused on getting something for a specific situation, but they aren't as focused on learning something that can be generalized to a whole bunch of situations. So, like, people will really focus on getting an exact perfect answer on a single hand, but then they won't, like, try to learn a lot of different things that you can take away and generalize to all different cases and not just the one specific hand. And some of that is going to depend on how the person answering the question answers as well, like how well they can explain their reasoning and uh, generalize their own ideas. And I would consider this to be a skill where if you're good at generalizing information very well, sometimes you can just figure it out on your own and get what the general answer is. But if you're not good at it, it's a hard skill, and um, it can be hard to learn from things like that. Anyway, that's the end of this video, and thanks for watching.